Harley Quinn returned this week to our app screens for the grand finale of Season 5, and that episode was entitled The Mess is the Point. Now, I'm Cave Joel, and this is the video series where I give my thoughts and feelings on the episode that was, while also shouting out any comic book Easter eggs or references I can find. So with that out of the way, let's get right into it, shall we? Now, picking up directly from where last week left off, Metropolis is going to hell in a handbasket. The city is slowly eating itself following the bottling, and I gotta say, I appreciate the little 2-episode running gag wherein we see the citizens of Metropolis split down the middle on those who believe they're in a bottle city and those who think it's a conspiracy. The sign gags here are pretty solid. I actually wish we got a little bit more of that in this episode. I like you can totally tell we're in season finale mode too, because all the different supporting characters have decided to huddle inside the Daily Planet to await their ultimate fate and see whether or not Harley and Ivy are capable of saving them. Even King Shark makes a return, and yeah, Sean too. Really glad we got more of him and that the writers couldn't find a way to work in more Gordon or Barbara, huh? This season sure did miss their special touches, didn't it? Now back on Brainiac's ship, Harley attempts to pull one hell of a Hail Mary play if Lena and Lex are on the same page. Thanks to Harley's own psychiatric mojo, then maybe she can use those same psychological tricks to break them up again, which works instantly, actually. Geez, I mean, I know in comic book stories, villainous team-ups are usually short-lived affairs that usually end up falling apart due to greed or ego, but what the hell was even the point of teaming them up in the first place? If you weren't gonna actually do anything about it and they were just gonna go back to fighting in the very next episode. Speaking of undercooked ideas, I wish they actually played around with more in an attempt to try and escape the bottle. Ivy has to try and act like a bad mother to Frankette, who is giving her the cold shoulder, believing to have been abandoned by her mother after she was kidnapped by Lena. Again, I don't know why she thinks that. They were getting along fine before she got grabbed, but okay, they have problems now. Problems that also end up getting resolved incredibly quickly. Again, if they wanted to experiment with giving Harley and Ivy a kid of their own to raise, I wish they would have just done that. Not just introduce Frankette in one episode and then have her punted to the background for the next 2 episodes. And hey, speaking of punted to the background, and I absolutely was, Brainiac is here too, everyone. He actually ends up having some good comedy business with Sharon, who once again serves as this latter half of the season's major saving grace, comedically speaking. She hits on the robot for a little bit before eventually helping him come to the realization that, as the title says, the mess is the point. Chaos is simply a part of being alive and being sentient, and the harder you try and fix those things, the more you'll drive yourself insane. Is that all a little bit trite? Is that all just a little bit bumper sticker wisdom? Is it also a little weird that it's Harley's mom and not Harley herself that actually helps Brainiac come to this realization? Yeah, totally, 100%, but if nothing else, it actually manages to get Brainy out of his funk long enough to rejoin the others in escaping the bottle and actually having a major impact on this finale. The two Luthors end up getting shrunk down to size so Harley and Ivy can deal with them, and indeed they do incredibly easily. Seriously, they both go down after just one hit apiece. Man alive, this season really did not benefit from playing musical chairs with its villains, huh? Okay, but with the Luthors beaten, what's actually at stake now? Well, a vengeful Lena decided to pilot Brainiac's skull ship all the way back to Callooh on a collision course that would kill everyone. Normally, Brainiac would go out of his way to stop this, but he has embraced the idea that the mess is the point, and as such, he is now accepting his death at the absolute worst possible time. This means in order to save themselves and their friends still trapped in the bottle city, Harley and Ivy need to try and convince Brainiac that Bane's tragic play about his life actually had a happy ending. Which, of course, it didn't. In fact, the play ended with Brainiac just powering down everything, which is exactly what he does. But wait, that's not a bad thing, because for an alien machine like Brainiac, powering down basically means he ends up dying and going to heaven, where he is once again reunited with his beloved lost family. Only now Brainiac is able to take what he learned with all of his experiences on Earth and apply to his family, making him a lot happier. Or at least that's my interpretation of events. He also very well could just be hallucinating. In fact, for a minute there, he does see Harley, Ivy, and Sharon as his family, so you know, take your pick. Either way though, this conversation with his departed family inspires Brainiac to try and offer Harley and the others an escape pod, programmed to take them all the way back to Earth. Well, geez, that was convenient. Brainiac is also sure to break the fourth wall one last time too, a addressing the audience before his demise. And honestly, at this point, I think death would be a blessing for Brainiac. Geez, he really did have like 7 different motivations in the span of a couple minutes, didn't he? So much for me thinking the theme of this season was going to be a simple battle between the forces of cold, calculated order and the more hot-blooded human chaos. I mean, I guess that's what it was kind of about, but it sure did end up getting muddled and buried under a bunch of other stuff, didn't it? If nothing else, in a nice bit of characterization, Harley and Ivy figure before they escape they might as well try and rescue some of those bottle cities so they don't end up getting destroyed, along with Brainiac and his ship, even though up until now they sure didn't seem to show any interest in the bottle cities. And as we'll find out later, the bottles are also related to what might very well be a pitch for Season 6, but now I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, wow, they sure wrapped up this season pretty quickly, huh? But no, we actually have one final full act left to go, as our heroes try and make their way back to Earth, though apparently the navigation in Brainiac's escape pod totally sucks because it takes them through an uber-dangerous asteroid field. With the ship compromised and oxygen escaping through the craft, it looks like not only are Harley and Ivy going to die, but all of their friends in the Bottle City as well. Will this truly be the end? Well, no. Of course not. Why would you think that? If nothing else, they at least decide to pay off Frankette's presence as she manages to create oxygen bubbles, you know, like plants do, allowing everyone a chance to breathe and survive. And they really do play this like a life or death situation too, as everyone inside the bottle slowly but surely comes to terms with the fact that they might very well all might die, including the children. Again, it's a pretty dramatic turn in a show that is mostly a comedy. In fact, there were very few jokes in this episode, period, when I stop and think about it, which is definitely a mark against it. What's wild to me is that as soon as they're done this oh no, all is lost moment, they turn around and then do another all is lost moment as the ship continues to break down on its way back to Earth. Seriously, I have no idea why these two beats are right back to back with one another. It really undercuts the mood they're going for. I guess they felt Frankette needed to do something in the story to justify her inclusion, but they also knew that the story couldn't end like this, so they had to keep going with an even more dramatic, even more dire scene wherein Harley and Ivy truly end up feeling their mortality, as they reflect on the lives they've lived and how this might very well be their last adventure. And you know what? None of it really works. Again, I can't confirm it one way or another, but I get the sneaking suspicion that all the people working on the Harley Quinn show really assumed that this was going to be their last episode, and as such they needed to wring as much emotion and sentiment out of the proceedings as possible. And yet it all just feels so inorganic and falls so flat. If I may be so bold as to have a little detour here for a minute, What We Do in the Shadows, probably one of the funniest shows of the last decade, also ended just recently. And its last episode, in case you haven't seen it, is actually an amazing work of meta-comedy where it not only dissects and deconstructs what its own ending might potentially look like, but also why some of the best comedy shows that have ever existed on television pretty much all fall flat with very disappointing series finales when they go out of their way to chase sentiment and emotion instead of just telling jokes. Which for Harley is even doubly disappointing because I know for a fact that this show can actually have really great moments of sentiment and it really can be emotionally affecting. And those moments from past seasons work so well because it doesn't even look like they were trying. Here they're 100% trying and it's disappointing. How do they get out of it? Superman comes and saves them because, well, that's a Chekhov's gun they had still yet to fire. Superman is also happier than last time we saw him because finally people actually need him for a change, which in turn brings to a close his very small arc for the season. And yeah, with that, the episode is basically over. Harley and Ivy move back into their old place. Well, technically it's Cy Borgman's old place, but I digress. All their friends come over to celebrate. Looks like Bane and Betty are going to be having a child of their own. Joker and Bruce continue their comedically mismatched friendship, and the show desperately tries to come full circle with Harley saying that they never needed anything new in their lives to spice things up. Their lives are interesting enough. The show also tries to plant some seeds for what might take place next season. Apparently all of those different jarred cities are going to need some psychiatric care when it comes to rejoining the rest of society, and Harley has volunteered. Now, whether or not any of that actually comes to pass, or if they just end up throwing it away like they did the Birds of Prey stuff from Season 4 is still yet to be seen. In fact, at the time of recording, Season 6 has not been greenlit, and considering how they leave this season, I get the strong feeling that even the people working on the show aren't exactly certain if they'll be coming back next season or not. And so that was The Mess is the Point, and as far as finales go, yeah, that was a pretty apt title. This was a messy finale from start to finish. This season started with so much renewed promise and fresh energy, and boy did they really squander it by the end, didn't they? Say what you want about season 4, but at least there was thematic consistency there, and really I think that's what brings down season 5, a lack of consistency. It really does feel like they just threw everything at the wall to see what stuck, and yeah, some of it did, but unfortunately not enough to justify a 10-episode run in my mind. The show moved from Gotham to Metropolis, but they sure didn't really do a lot to actually interact with the Superman side of the universe. Hell, most of the Superman characters went unused. Or in Brainiac's case, felt so wildly inconsistent from the beginning of the show to the very end. Harley's supporting cast probably never felt more useless than they did here in this season. I know a lot of people complained in season 4 when it felt like the old characters were getting replaced by new ones, but honestly, given what little actual substance Bane, Clayface, and King Shark had to chew on this season, yeah, I can see why. Their appearances had started to become more limited. Also, the new characters we did get, like Sean and Lena, were either forgettable or just straight up annoying, and honestly, I could probably forgive all of these things too if the jokes were there, but honestly, this last episode was really lacking in the laughs department. On the whole, I dare say season 5 of Harley probably had more dud episodes than any other season in the series so far. And if this really did end up being the last run for these characters, well, I'll certainly be sad to see them go. I would be even sadder if they continued on in this form. But yeah, that'll just about do it for me, everyone. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed this video series. As always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me in this crazy YouTube algorithm game. And as always, be sure to join me on social media so you always know when a new Cape Joel video is about to drop. Maybe we will be covering Harley next year for season 6, maybe we won't, only time will tell.